Hello, good afternoon and welcome to Joy News today. Coming up, UN Interagency Working Group on Emergencies goes to the rescue of the Apyatse explosion victims. More as the National Disaster Management Organization begins resettlement of the displaced into a temporary structure. Meanwhile, government calls for calm as it assures of a ministerial committee of inquiry to look into circumstances leading to the cause of the explosion. We'll take you live to the community where he has been addressing the community members during his visits to sites this morning. Also, Ejisu Municipal Assembly begins investigations into circumstances under which a skidder was used to dangerously cart timber at a busy traffic intersection in Kumasi. We have details of these plus more, plus business, sports, world news and showbiz all coming up. My name is Mapita Sibidi. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. In our first story, UN Interagency Working Group on Emergencies has gone to the rescue of affected persons in the Apyatse explosion. This comes as the National Disaster Management Organization begins resettling victims in a temporary structure. Team lead for the United Nations Agency Working Group on Emergencies, Christopher Nkrumah, tells Joy News alongside the resettlement arrangement are basic needs such as medical supplies, which the organization deems necessary for the welfare and total rehabilitation of victims. He gives further details of the support they're providing to complement the resettlement of victims.
We are here to, first of all, empathize with the community. We've heard the news, but then we hear personally to empathize with the community and also engage the affected population as well, so that as UN has been supporting government's efforts, we want to see what needs we can fill or what gaps we can fill as the UN Interagency Working Group on Emergencies.
Okay, so which of the agencies are here? I've seen UNICEF, I've seen the World Food Programme, I've seen the UNFPA.
Sure. So as you rightly said, we have IOM also with us, UNICEF, UNFPA, WFP. So the others, we know that WHO has already been here because of the urgent need for some medical assistance and supplies.
Okay,
yeah.
so after the preliminary assessment, what are we expected or likely to see?
Okay, so even as we came with some supplies. Okay. So the supplies, we have some medical items for the hospitals that is treating those who have been injured. We also have some water and sanitation kits that we want to donate to the displaced population. We also have some educational materials as well. So from here, we will just go to the new site and do a handing over of those things to the municipal NADMO team and the assembly so that it can be distributed to the affected population.
And I'm sure after this assessment and the needs that you identified means more intervention is going to come for the people.
Yeah, sure. So that is the essence of our engagement with the people here, so that once we are done, we know that one of the key things that will be much needful is the provision of psychosocial support for everyone, but especially children. And I know through our coordinating efforts, we'll be able to ensure that is done. And any other things that we find out, we go and brief the resident coordinator, the other interagency working group partners, and then we firm up on the key next steps.
Deputy NADMO Director Seji Saji Amendo gives a breakdown on how the resettlement will be done.
We had a joint meeting about 3 days ago, and we shared our rapid assessment information with them, and through that meeting we all agreed that there's a need to do a follow-up assessment, which is actually still a rapid but a needs assessment. So we are now going to zero down on the specific needs that will be temporarily needed, and needs that will be also needed in the medium to long term. So in sharing that report, that is where we give them in the information that apart from the food items we have, there was a need to actually target children, mothers, and the female too as well. So immediately, some of the agencies working under the UN Interagency Working Group on Emergencies had some supplies, some dignity kits, and by dignity kits I mean things that toothpaste, toothbrush, sponge, sanitary pads, and all those things, and diapers, and all that. So quickly they were able to mobilize something, and yesterday we were able to provide something. This morning they brought some as well.
Let's take you back into the community as the Lands Minister calls for calm while government sets up a ministerial committee to investigate the incident.
Quickly, that is very refreshing and encouraging that the State Housing Company seems to have done some considerable work already, including the assembling of inventory of the structures we are dealing with. Essentially, President Akufo-Addo is committed that government will take the necessary steps to reconstruct the Apieti community. And as you know, yesterday, on its instructions, I launched the Apieti Support Fund, which is to raise the requisite resources to support the community members, as well as be used for the reconstruction of this community. And therefore, we are very excited to be here, and we've done some very good work. The minister who is responsible for housing has had a good sense of what is at stake. And from here, we will put in place the necessary framework and mechanism to move forward with the steps towards the reconstruction of this community. What is important, what I have to emphasize, is that government is extremely committed to unleash the necessary responses to this disaster, because this is a government that is determined to rebuild this community, support the community members, and make sure that the situation here is returned to normalcy. With these words, I'll call my colleague, the Works and Housing Minister, to say a few words.
When is the reconstruction work starting? Are we seeing any work starting anytime soon?
We will have to go about this professionally and go about this systematically. And we have to use the necessary experts and get a proper understanding and get proper briefing and advice, expert advice from the necessary experts. I think the first step is what we have done. We've been here ourselves. The next step will be assembling the experts and getting the experts to develop a roadmap, a pathway for us to be able to engage in the reconstruction of this community.
A 1-month-old baby miraculously escaped death after a building collapsed on her at a Apieti in the western region. She sustained injuries on her face after she was rescued from the rubble. Her young 19-year-old mother says they lost everything after the explosion that devastated their community. Psychiatric Association of Ghana on Tuesday revealed its initial assessment shows some children have gone mute after the disaster, with others persistently screaming at night. Maxwell Agaba has the rest of the story.
Baby Abna crying as her mother, Janet Amate, tries to lull her to sleep. Janet is waiting for the medical team at the St. Michael's Catholic Church to dress her baby's wounds. Injuries she sustained after she was pulled from the collapsed building. Her mother tells me she was washing outside when the explosion happened. She says she was at home washing when they were alerted to switch off all the electrical gadgets. Shortly after that, the explosion happened. She says her daughter got injured after the building collapsed on her, with a structure also engulfed by fire. Baby Abner's grandmother, Abna Jesiwa, says they lost everything after Thursday's explosion. She says life will not be the same after they leave the shelter. She was at the farm when the incident happened. She sells underwears, noodles at night, and also a farmer. She says they lost everything after the explosion and need support. Money for food will be a problem when they leave the shelter. The Psychiatric Association of Ghana on Monday conducted a mental health assessment of the affected persons. Amongst others, its preliminary findings revealed children who reportedly scream at night and children who have gone mute since the explosion. The association is calling on Ghanaians to put resources together to avert what it describes as a potential mental health catastrophe in Apiazi.
Minister for Works and Housing Francis Asenso-Boakye also visited the site to commiserate with victims this morning. Let's listen to him.
I came with officials from LUPSA, which is the old land use spatial planning, the old time country planning, officials from state housing, and officials from the Department of Rural Housing. LUPSA's duty will be to help us develop the layout planning scheme for this area. As you know, like many other communities, what you see is haphazard development, not a well planned scheme. But once government is coming in to reconstruct, it's important that you do things in the way that befits the community. And also state housing is the state developer into construction and management of estates. So they will be responsible for that. But what is also interesting is that this is a pretty small rural community, and there is a department under our ministry called Department of Rural Housing that advises government on what kind of appropriate technology that is best fit for housing development in such small towns like Apiati. So we, as the ministry, we are going to coordinate and mobilize all these relevant state institutions to come out with a well layout plan towards the construction and rebuilding of this community. Thank you.
Mr. First, we have some few questions for you. So that it's been 6 days already since this thing occurred. You may have done some surveys to know the number of buildings that have been affected, how much it's going to cost us to reconstruct this place, at least a rough estimate.
This is a follow-up visit to what the Vice President did, and this is the first time that my ministry is coming here. I must say that state housing company officials have come here, but we are still in the process of putting our responses together so that we can formally come back to the public to say this the number of houses we're going to be dealing with. So we will still at the initial stages. I think the minister said that we are going to act professionally and to make sure that whatever action that we are taking is based on a plan. So let's not preempt anything for now. What is important at this stage is government's resolve.
From the Western region, let's go to the Ashanti region, where the Ejisu Municipal Assembly is investigating the circumstances under which a skidder was used to dangerously cut timber at a busy traffic intersection on the Ejisu-Kumasi Road. Residents are incensed at the viral video showing the heavy lifting machine transporting the timber while posing danger to commuters. Municipal Chief Executive Samuel Ojo Frimpong says the police have been tasked to thoroughly investigate the matter, including police officers alleged to have supervised the activity.
According to residents, a timber-carrying truck had a burst tire which required the offloading of the logs onto another truck. The process got bizarre as a heavy lifting machine attempted to lift a log from one end of the road to the other. Traders and commuters panicked as the log carrying machine drove along the busy intersection.
Apologies for that wrong insert. We'll bring you that sound later in the bulletin. President Akufo-Addo says he's determined to end the conflict in Boku and bring lasting peace to the area. His comments follows renewed clashes over the weekend that left 4 people dead, including a female police officer. The Upper East regional town has for years witnessed chieftaincy clashes, leading to many deaths and injuries. The Regional Security Council has banned the use of motorbike as part of measures to end the conflict. At the Jubilee House yesterday, the president held talks with the Boku, Naba, Asigri, Azoko, Abu Garogo to find a solution to the impasse.
I'm happy that the Boku Naba and his elders were able to honor my invitation to come and talk to me about what's been going on in Boku recently. Boku Naba, you know, ever since I became president and I took the oath of office, my major concern has been to enforce the oath that I took to uphold the Constitution and the laws of Ghana. The laws of Ghana include decisions of the Supreme Court of our country. I'm a lawyer, and I know fully well the nature of the decision that the Supreme Court took over the Boku chieftaincy conflict. And ever since I became president, I have not made any secret of the fact that, for me, he is the Boku Naba. So with this background, I'm hoping that Boku Naba would also find a way to cooperate with government to bring peace to the area. The monies we spent on security in Boku, those monies could be used to develop the place. So I asked him here so that we could find a way, all of us, himself, the Nairi, all of us, to work towards bringing peace and calm and understanding to Boku.
Political scientist and lecturer at the University of Ghana, Dr. Asa Asante, says the nation is simply not ready to fight corruption. Reacting to Ghana's stagnant position on the Corruption Perception Index on the AIM show, Dr. Asante said fighting corruption with lip service will not take the nation out of the canker.
The fight against corruption has been one that has been waged with difficulty since the birth of this republic. Government have made effort to deal with it head on. Right. But the stark reality is that they have not been able to find way around corruption. It's simply because we are not ready to fight corruption. I want to put it blunt. Because we know means of addressing corruption. We know sources of corruption. What are we doing with that? Let me give you a typical example. Issue of political party financing is a clear way where people where corruption gets to our system. What are we doing? The state has not taken the trouble to look at how to fund political party campaigns. We have left that one with the political parties, and all manner of people are funding, and they are getting opportunity to come back for contracts with some very unclear ways of handling some of these things. These have gone a long way to create problems for us, and we are refusing as a country to see. We always, fight corruption using slogans, using gestures, and so forth and so on, which do not mean anything. Look at countries such as America and all that. If you want to even go into political party financing as an individual, there's a threshold which you cannot go beyond. If you go beyond, you cross that line, you are going to jail. A very simple matter. What is the situation here? Even if we don't have such rules here, can't you borrow such nice experiences and make it our own here? We are only refusing to fight corruption. But we come out with slogans, we will protect public purse, we will fight corruption, zero tolerance for corruption. I think that these are all words that will only go a long way toward sway voters to vote in a certain direction. But the real fight against corruption, I'm afraid we are not ready to fight.
Dr. Asante also described as unfortunate the uncompromising posture of government on the introduction of the E-LEVY, which he says is unhealthy for consensus building. He urged government to be accommodating to different views for a better execution of the policy.
We are well aware that government has failed ab initio. If government want to make amends, they should choose the right path to do it. than what you rightly put as knee-jerk reaction. We have said time and again, and I want to reiterate the point here, that taxation is not a bad thing. If you govern without the ability to tax, then it means it speaks volume of your capacity as a state. But the magnitude is what we are worried about, that given the circumstances we find ourselves, it will be difficult, if not impossible, for Ghanaians to bear that 1.7 tax, burden. So why can't you listen to groups, stakeholders, so that you can come out with something that is meaningful for all? That's a very simple matter that government is refusing to understand. And it's simply because government has not found other means of raising revenue to shore up its revenue for the administration of the state. It's very unfortunate, because ideas are bound. If you really are interested in getting ideas to run the country, it shouldn't be a difficult one than you with such a posture, that uncompromising posture, a posture that will not warrant consensus, would not allow for dialogue. Then it becomes a monologue issue. But remember, governance is what give and take, is a dialogue process. So if government want to go on this tangent, I'm afraid this will not help anybody. So they need to soften their grounds and then do the needful by talking to groups, by seeking advice, so that at the end of the day, this bill passes and passes through, so that they get the right revenue to run the administration of the state. It's unfortunate of this that we have government pusher in this direction.
The Ashanti Regional Health Directorate has begun the administration of COVID-19 vaccines to pregnant women. Immune booster shots have also been introduced to curtail spread and harmful effects of COVID-19 on pregnant women and the general public. There's more in this report.
The initial rollout of COVID-19 vaccines in Ghana excluded pregnant women, which health experts say was premised on skepticism. However, recent local and international findings have confirmed the vaccines are safe to be administered to pregnant women. Speaking at a press conference, Ashanti Regional Director of Health Service, Dr. Emmanuel Tinkrine, allayed fears associated with pregnant women being vaccinated and encouraged expectant mothers to visit various centers for their jab.
Now, evidence have shown that we can immunize pregnant women. And because when they are pregnant, their immunity is quite low. It means that if you have a privilege and the risk is very low, and you immunize pregnant women, it will be better. From evidence-based, or from our scientific knowledge, we now know that the vaccine is safe for pregnant women. So nobody should think of abortion, miscarriage, and other things. It may be coincidental. You may take the vaccine and you may abort. Sometimes abortion happens spontaneous, but don't associate it with the vaccine. On the other hand, if you take the vaccine and you have any reaction, the first thing you have to do is to report to the nearest healthcare facility.
Assuring the safety of the vaccines, Dr. Tinkrine underscored expectant mothers can receive Pfizer and Moderna vaccines.
We are recommending Moderna and Pfizer for the pregnant women. And then the first dose will be given as early as possible in pregnancy. And then the second dose will follow that of the general population.
Dr. Tinkrine indicated the Health Directorate has initiated a booster policy for persons who have completed their primary vaccination 3 to 6 months ago. The targeted category includes persons with underlying health issues, health workers, persons aged 60 years and above, security personnel, and members of the various arms of government.
We know that immunity for COVID-19 usually wanes. So when you take the vaccine, from 3 months to 6 months, you realize that the immunity will drop a bit. And for that reason, for the high-risk group, we are starting the booster vaccination for them. We will give the booster dose 3 months to 6 months after the second dose.
From Kumasi for Joy News, Emmanuel Bright-Kweko reporting.
Executive Director of Star Ghana Foundation is calling on government to speed up the passage of social enterprise policy. He believes the implementation of the policy will help leverage the finances required by social enterprise in the country to facilitate the funding of SDGs, poverty reduction, among others. According to Star Ghana Foundation, donor funds have declined Amidu Ibrahim Tanko is Executive Director of Star Ghana Foundation, and he noted that social enterprise has been identified as one of the tools that provides sustainable ways of financing the Sustainable Development Goals, poverty reduction, as well as fighting inequality.
Social enterprise requires, one, an enabling environment, and so the advocacy for the passage of the social enterprise policy is quite important, and we call on government to speed up efforts to pass the policy. The second thing is for a cooperation amongst the various stakeholders to see how do we ensure that social enterprises are able to leverage the financing that they require. You know, some are very small enterprises, and the kind of funding that they requires very specific modalities. And so we think that government and the financial sector should look at that. That's the second thing. The third is, I think, just getting collaboration amongst all, academia, civil society, the private sector, government, to ensure that we create an enabling environment for social enterprise, especially in this era of youth unemployment. Social enterprise provides a very good, strategy for supporting young children and young people to earn incomes, not depend on employment from government, and as a result of that, help to reduce poverty in Ghana.
Soil is the most significant source of various nutrients and microflora, but due to its depletion by excessive addition of chemical fertilizers, rehabilitated attention is needed to maintain sustainable approaches in agricultural crop production. Researchers are recommending the use of biochar as a carbon-rich solid material to help restore soil nutrients and combat climate change. They say crop growth and yield can be increased using biochar. Itaka Institute is therefore conducting scientific research about biochar in cocoa production. Mohammed Nuruddin reports.
Biochar is a high-carbon organic matter, a byproduct derived from biomass through high temperature and low oxygen pyrolysis. To address major concern on quality of agricultural soil degradation, biochar is applied to the soil to improve its quality. It has been considered as an effective method to reclaim contaminated soil and achieve high crop yields without destroying the natural environment. Itaka Institute is therefore carrying out research on its impact on cocoa production.
Piloting this new technology, you also face some challenges and issues that need to be solved before you can enter an upscaling procedure. For example, the application mode of the biochar.
Yes, currently it's free, and as part of, because it's a pilot phase, we even motivating the farmers. So at each of these farmers who have received the treatment, we bought the char, though we trained them to produce the biochar themselves, but we gave them something to motivate them.
The project has certified 18 beneficiary farmers who produce and apply biochar to their cocoa farms. This is the first certified biochar-based carbon sink in smallholder cocoa systems. It is verified according to the European Biochar Certificate as developed by the Itaka Institute. It enables beneficiaries to receive carbon premium on their produce.
So far we've trained 33 farmers, and we've incorporated biochar into 18 of these farmers. So in terms of beneficiaries, 18 farmers have received the application of biochar and biochar-based fertilizers.
So talking about perennial systems as the cocoa, it would make sense to apply the biochar, the fertilizer, as a root zone application. Here a new technology is on the market called geo-injection, which we also trialed in our pilot study. But this needs further improvement before we can enter an upscale. So building on this challenge, we were looking for alternative modes of application of this biochar-based fertilizer, and found, for example, the topsoil application as a biochar slurry as a feasible mode for fast scaling.
Biochar can be produced from raw materials such as grass, cow manure, among others. It is produced during pyrolysis, a terminal decomposition of biomass in an oxygen-limited environment.
The project seeks to use a product which farmers have struggled to dispose over the years, that is the cocoa husk. So in that sense, it's even good because the husk, even on the farmer's field, could also pose some management challenges. And then two, also the biochar that is made from the cocoa husk is also interesting. And then also it gives a very good opportunity for other economic benefits.
To combat climate change, biochar is added to the soil to sequester carbon.
I see this project as one with a very, very high potential in regard to climate change mitigation. Extracting biomass from a cocoa systems, finding a feasible way to do that would allow for a global scaling. There are gigantic areas under cocoa cultivation, and if these huge farmer networks delivering to the big cocoa companies engage in biochar production, we talk about the climate change mitigation effect on a megaton scale CO2 per year.
It is believed that biochar has a long average lifetime in soil ranging from 1,000 to 10,000 years, with an average of 5,000 years. A report by Mohammed Nuruddin.
The structure.
Yeah, you need to buy shade.
You're still watching Midday with me, Mapita Sibidi. We take a quick breather. I'll be back with business. And in business, a former finance minister, Mr. Seth Tekpe, has indicated that the economy may collapse if the government does not consider prudent measures to salvage the situation. According to him, based on the assessment of Bloomberg and Fitch, there's sufficient evidence to suggest that Ghana's economy is not in a fine shape. He says numerous taxes charged on Ghanaians to rake in revenue is repressive. He believes government should focus on measures to cut down on expenditure.
You need to look for money to be able to spend. And then, apart from that, then it came with a E-LEVY of the 1.75%. What the chamber is saying is that we are just measuring our injury after the COVID effect. And a lot of businesses are still crawling. And we are much aware that it's the private sector that creates jobs. We also pay profit tax and some services tax to the government. Now, we are looking at the hen that lays the egg. That if we are not able to treat the hen very well, we might not even get the egg. The government is imposing 1.75 levy, and we know the statistics that we have. Even other countries have not benefited from that, and most of them were even below 1%. Now, how do we support it? What we are saying is that as a nation, must pay tax to support the government. But we are saying that the 1.7 was very high.
All right.
Because when you look at the SMEs, they form a lot of the chunk in this, what we call the Momo transaction. And even those within the banks, that where you have some big businesses who have gone for loans and they are paying their money, doing some transfers, etc.
Sure.
I believe that tax is applied on production. That you produce goods and services you pay. Now, I expected that even the telecommunication industry and those that are involved doing the transactions.
We now turn our attention to the controversial 1.75% electronic levy. We know that government is pushing hard to get it passed in Parliament, but Ghana's umbrella business community, the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, is sending worrying signals over the 1.75% electronic levy, calling for an immediate downward review between 0.5% or 1.0%. Clement Osei Amwaka is president of the chamber. The Ministry of Trade and Industry says it has initiated a market expansion program to support Ghanaian businesses with the potential to export to other parts of the continent. According to the Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry, Herbert Kapra, over 150 companies have been identified and work is ongoing to identify their needs and provide support to them. He was speaking at the UPSA Law School Africa Trade Roundtable discussion. There's more in this report.
The roundtable discussion focused on the relevance of the African Continental Free Trade Area competition protocols on Ghana's industrial transformation. They delved into how local businesses can expand and export their goods to other parts of the continent. Here is Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry Herbert Krapa on what his outfit is doing to support local businesses.
The ministry, through the National AFCFTA Coordination Office, has initiated a market expansion program designed to identify and support Ghanaian companies with potential to export to Africa. Over 150 companies have so far been identified, and work is ongoing to determine their specific needs and facilitation support to enable them enter and compete on the African market. African countries trade more outside the continent than within, and we must change this. Why must cotton from Burkina Faso travel across the Mediterranean only to be purchased by a Ghanaian industry from a European agent? Trade policies, whether for Botswana, Malawi, or Ghana, must be harmonized to produce and promote coordinated trade growth, coherent and geared towards boosting intra-African trade.
He explained that government has put in place a framework to ensure healthy competition for Ghanaian businesses in the Continental Free Trade Agreement area.
Cartelism and price fixing and all the negative effects of anti-competition, especially because of the expected boom in trade that the AFCFTA is going to bring to us. So this forum is a critical, very critical roundtable which has helped to put into perspective the issues of anti-competition whilst the competition protocols are being negotiated.
Industry players have described the competition law as a key component of every country's industrial policy, though it comes with shortcomings if not properly implemented.
That's it for business.
Good afternoon, welcome to Showbiz here on Joy News Today. Now, Joy Entertainment opens its 2022 chapter of Celebrate with a Big Bang, a double dose of goodness. Sensational music duo R2B takes center stage in the initiative that throws a spotlight on hardworking Ghanaian musicians who need maps. We end Showbiz here on Joy News Today.
Thank you very much, Becky, for this. My purpose is to chill with the bombs and the something. That's how we end the midday news. For more music, log to myjoyonline.com. My name is Mapito CBD.